and get going. Once again, thank you to everyone who was able to join us today for our educational webinar on why your legal practice needs a cybersecurity risk assessment. I am today's presenter and host, Nick Stevens. I'm CEO and co-founder of Heroic Technologies. I'm joined by COO and co-founder of Heroic Technologies, Nate Odegaard, who's kind of behind the scenes, helping run the webinar behind the curtain. So if there's any issues, please reach out in the chat and Nate should be able to assist, though I don't foresee any problems. All right. So why are you here? Well, things are changing, and as I'm sure you know, cyber attacks are way up. Cybercrime is expected to be a $10 trillion business in 2023, making it the third largest economy after the US and China. The big difference is cybercrime is growing at 15% year over year, something that most countries wish their economy could do. Considering that, you're also probably part of a law firm or legal service along the West Coast, likely in the San Francisco Bay Area or Portland metro areas. You've likely heard plenty on the news about these cyber attacks, and you just want to make sure that your firm is protected. You may even have someone managing your IT, or you may have cyber insurance, but you're not sure if that's enough. So that's our mission today, provide you with some information and ideas that you can take back to your firm on how to better protect it from cyber risks. Now, who are we? Heroic Technologies is a security-first managed IT service provider. Our mission is really to empower our clients' productivity while minimizing their risk. So we're constantly focusing on both IT and cybersecurity education. Very much like an attorney has to spend time each year on continuing education to keep their ability to practice law, we're constantly training and studying the tactics used by cyber criminals, how best to protect the businesses that we support. We do this from our two offices, one office in Portland, Oregon, and one in San Jose, California, in the San Francisco Bay Area. Our team has 135 years of combined IT experience, so we know what we're doing, and we take pride in our work. On our call today, we're going to go over 3 different areas for our agenda, and hopefully give you some good information to bring back to your firm on how to protect the business from attacks. First, we're going to talk about what a cybersecurity risk assessment is and why your firm needs one now. Talk about the typical timelines and what to expect in the process, and we'll wrap up on what the next step is to make sure that your business is covered and mitigate your cyber risk. So why bother listening? Why join? Well, not only do we have extensive experience in cybersecurity and extensive experience supporting law firms, things are changing, as I mentioned. Attacks are way up, especially for law firms. Law firms are considered a prime target because of the sensitive information that they have as a part of the legal work they provide their clients. 2022, more than a quarter of law firms suffered some form of a security. And 2023 has already become a banner year with both large and small firms being attacked. And it's not just the initial cyber attacks that you have to worry about. In 2023, there were just under 45 class action lawsuits per month as a result of data breaches. So this is when an organization gets breached, their data is stolen, and then sometime months or years later, a class action lawsuit is put together against that organization for not properly protecting that data. So that's what we focus on. We focus on making sure that our clients have the best protection available. So they're leveraging leading edge technology as well as tried and true processes and policies. We really focus on trying to become an integral part of our clients' organization. We don't want to just be another vendor. We want to actually be a partner. So, and that allows us to really understand how your firm works, how any of our clients work, so we can bring a security first approach along with our highly skilled, seasoned team of professionals. Live and breathe IT. What really is a cybersecurity risk assessment? Essentially, it's a tool for identifying and addressing potential vulnerabilities in your organization's digital defenses. By regularly conducting a risk assessment, effectively protect the practice from cyber threats, such as data breaches, ransomware attacks, and other forms of common cybercrime. Few reasons that your business needs an assessment: identify and prioritize your risks. Risk assessment helps you identify the potential vulnerabilities and threats that can compromise the organization's data and systems. If you can prioritize these risks and focus your resources on the most pressing issues, then you can also quickly take the steps to mitigate those issues. You also can protect your assets. Risks can have serious consequences, including financial losses, reputational damage, and legal liabilities. A risk assessment helps you understand the potential impacts of these risks and take the steps needed to protect them from occurring. And also to comply with regulations and ethical obligations. Bar associations' ethical obligations require law firms to take reasonable steps to monitor for breaches, take prompt action to fix a detected breach, and mitigate resulting damages. What if you don't know that a breach occurred because you're not looking for it? And also, depending on type of law practice, the data that a firm holds may need to comply with a variety of different regulations. And lastly, to improve efficiency. So by conducting regular risk assessments, you can identify and address potential vulnerabilities before they become major issues. This can help you avoid costly downtime and improve the efficiency of operations. So overall, cybersecurity risk assessment, it's really a crucial step in protecting your business from the growing threat of cyber attacks. By regularly conducting these assessments, you can safeguard your assets, comply with regulations, and improve the efficiency of your overall operations. The assessment framework consists of 4 parts. First, we really focus on the people. The firm can't function without the people, and they're really the first line of defense. They're the ones that are typically targeted initially for any cyber attack. We also address processes. What processes are critical to the firm's growth and success? And what happens if those are targeted? Do those processes have any vulnerabilities that might make them able to be leveraged against you? Take a look at the technology. Is the technology secure? Is it resilient? If there's a cyber attack, will this technology stay online? If not, then what do you do then? And lastly, the data. This is often the value and the end goal or target of an attack. We want to identify what data there is and is it properly protected? So first, we'll start with protecting the people. An organization's number one vulnerability is the people. And it's not because they don't care or that they themselves are malicious, but just because they're trying to get their job done. The cyber criminals know that your employees are busy, they're trying to do their best, and the cyber criminals are going to take advantage of that through social engineering. As a result, aren't only your number one asset, but in the cyber landscape, unfortunately, also become your number one vulnerability because your employees will be targeted as they have the information the criminals want, and they have the access that the criminals want to gain. They can get into your systems. This kind of reminds me of a law firm that we've worked with. They had an HR administrator that was did by hackers. This HR admin, very convincing email, spoofed, I might add, that looked like it came from one of the partners. It was identical email signature in their email client Outlook. It looked like it was from that partner. Everything looked like it was legitimate. They also knew that that partner had just recently moved. The email was asking that they change their bank information. It didn't seem that far fetched that after a move, the attorney might need to go ahead and change bank they're using for direct deposits. So, trying to help and make sure that partners don't have a lot of time, and this HR admin wanted to make sure that they helped out prompt manner. So they went ahead and assisted with that request. Unfortunately, about a month later, the partner reached out again and started to wonder what happened to their monthly distribution. Their payment distribution never came through. Found that over $50,000 had been wired to the cyber criminals account because it had actually been a phishing email. And this, as you would well assume, devastated the HR. We learned about this years later, and it was still clearly they were embarrassed and concerned about and never wanted to repeat. That's why we really want to focus protecting the people. And try to take a moment and put yourself in the shoes of that accidentally let a hacker into the business. I mean, not only is there the cyber impact or potential financial impact to the firm, there's a human impact too. I mean, the guilt, if it's bad enough, potential loss of employment, potentially even loss of jobs, if it's so bad that it really impacts the organization's ability to function. How do we protect the people? First, we want to review the level of cybersecurity awareness among your team. Has the team received security training? Anyone who did poorly and maybe needs additional? Anybody on the team who's likely to fall victim to a phishing? Does anybody have poor password hygiene? Possibly possible that their passwords would be stolen, easily guessed. If we address these few things, that can go a long way. Over 90% of breaches start with an email. Team knows how to accurately identify malicious emails. That's a good step. And 60% involve compromised employee passwords. Passwords could be passwords that were stolen web, passwords that were reused across multiple different accounts. But how would you know if you're not looking? So we make sure we start with the people, protect the people, identify their level of security awareness, and identify any potential behavior that they have that might lead or help enable a breach. Next, we want to protect the processes. I have another story that kind of will help illustrate this a bit. So, about a law firm that they represent their client who was the seller in a real estate deal. This is a client they'd worked with for a while, had numerous other engagements, and the client was to receive a $100,000 wire transfer as a initial down payment for this transaction. Unbeknownst to the law, however, one of their paralegals' emails had been hacked prior to the closing. The hacker sent a series of emails to be from the client instructing the law firm wire fund account at a different bank. The law firm thought this was legit, very topical. It had to deal with the current, related to a current deal that they were working with client. Law firm went ahead. They wired those down payment money the account provided, to learn later that the instructions were all fraudulent. Fraud wasn't discovered until the client reached out, inquiring to the law firm why they hadn't received the down payment yet. At which point the law firm realized that they had sent it to the wrong account because they had been tricked. And unfortunately, the firm then had to compensate the client for that lost money, as well as provide any necessary credit monitoring in the event there's other information that might have been lost to the client. Why? Because the firm didn't have a process to validate requests for changes on financial transactions. They had a process, it's a common process that firms have to go through. And it's not just for clients, it's even just for HR. As we discussed in the last Protecting the People, what are the processes potentially vulnerable to fraud? Do you have the proper checks and balances built into the processes to avoid fraud and catch it if somebody tries? All it takes is a simple phone call to validate that it's a legitimate request. We need to make sure that we're not only protecting the people, but also the processes. We want to review the firm's processes and identify what processes and potentially introduce risk. Are there processes that should be adjusted to improve security without causing any unnecessary time or additional time or effort? For example, when you retire or terminate an employee, how do you know that they're fully locked out? Detailed process for this. Are you sure that they don't still have access to some legacy system? It's not uncommon for organizations to have a lot of different systems, and they're not really not every single person is aware of every single one. And perhaps employee gets moved, employee that left gets removed from most of them, but maybe not all of them. Processes, operations. If a process were interrupted, say month-end billing, can't like documents can't be accessed timely fashion, time can't be entered, conflicts can't be checked. What happens? Able to continue, have a backup plan, not just for goes offline, but a process. A lot of risk with that. And lastly, what policies are in place to ensure that the processes are actually followed? Making sure that everybody's same manner and making sure those checks and balances aren't skipped when a different person follows that process. Next, we want to protect the technology. So technology is critical for modern law firms. Whether it's daily use computer, email, phone, practice management software, document management software, or accounting system. Challenges, technology is always changing. That introduces vulnerabilities that must be constantly monitored. What would happen if you suffered a ransomware attack right now? Everything was encrypted. Everything was encrypted. Could the firm continue to operate? Most businesses can't. Major reasons they don't have a plan. They don't understand what systems are critical. They haven't spent the time making their technology and firm resilient. Reminds me of a story I was just reading about. It was a ransomware attack on a law firm earlier that started because their email system had an unpatched vulnerability. Something that they could have fixed. A patch was available, but they did not install it. Hackers identified that vulnerability existed, and they took advantage of it. The result was the firm had all of their systems thrives on cash flow. They couldn't operate and continue to operate without their systems. So in this specific example, they paid the ransom. They had to decrypt, make everything functional again, rather than risk an extended outage, possible data loss, and possible, cash flow issues. Cash flow issues are a killer for law firms. The scary part is approximately 70% of organizations that suffer a breach suffer a second attack and breach within 24 months of the first one. So to put in the wounds, not only can you get breached once, it's likely that you'll get breached again within 2 years. And to add to that, firms can lose up to 30% of their clients after they experience a cyber breach. I mean, what's the one thing that everybody thinks about when they think of attorneys? Client privilege. So you're expecting that your attorney has best interest in mind, and they are not only helping you with competent legal counsel, they are protecting all the information they have collected from you. Law firms have a lot of sensitive information, but is it properly protected? We really need to make sure that that technology, view the firm's software applications and your computer system, and identify the vulnerabilities. Also needs to assess the resilience of software hardware. If a system gets hacked, is it still usable? Do you have proper defenses in place? If it goes online, how long can it be? If there's potential data loss, can you recover it? What are the policies and procedures to help manage the technology? Firm's incident plan. What's the business recovery plan? Have a plan. What are you going to do? Ransom today. What would your firm do? Would you be able to recover? We need to understand that. And part of that is really diving into the technology. Part 4 is protecting the data. So why do we protect the data? Well, first and foremost is one of the primary obligations of an attorney. Information a client provides to their attorney, core part of the client privilege. And law firms often have sensitive information on people. That information can vary wildly depending on the type of law that you practice. This could be employee information, financial information, medical information, trade secrets, information on family, trusts, or estates. A variety of both personal and business information that's almost always of a sensitive nature. The information is not only valuable to the clients, it's extremely valuable. That's what they're looking to monetize, trying to see if it can disrupt your operations, provide payment to have them stop disrupting your operations. Second, to see if they can valuable information that would make you pay again or pay more. Get that information back and make sure that your client is protected. On the example that I gave for the firm that suffered a breach as a result of unpatched software, that breach not only operations impacted through ransomware, terabytes of confidential data. And once that data is gone, you're not getting it back. It is now, as they say, out in the wild. And that level of trust that you have with the client is now lost. So to protect the data, and of what types of data the firm has, specific laws that regulate the data stored, how is it used, back to any potential regulations, types of data. So if your data is stored, but also on a third party host, say a Dropbox, Drive, or some other server, places that data and how it's protected in each of those locations. Policies have in place to ensure data is properly protected and managed. Well, we've kind of covered the 4 key portions of a cybersecurity risk assessment. How long is it going to take? When heroic technologies cybersecurity risk, we typically start off with a strategy. This is typically 15 minutes, just really an initial call, understand where you're at, how you're currently doing things, get a brief idea of what protections you have in place, and just a bit of a early on call. Once a security risk process typically takes about 30 days. For larger organizations, really complex environments potentially take a bit longer, but we typically average around 30 days. Now, who would need to be involved in this? Typically, we always request a executive sponsor. So this is going to be somebody on the management, higher executive side that can really make sure that things get done and things get forward. Somebody with the authority, yes, you can do that. So moving forward with the assessment, and also others within the firm work along with us to make sure that everything proceeds. We have the information. Key staff members that are different critical parts of the firm and the firm processes. Be finance team, paralegals, HR, understand how different roles are performed, what systems, what data they come in contact with. We'll present our findings. So whenever we present our findings, we have all the stakeholders present. Absolutely key. All the stakeholders present, schedule. Single manager, multiple partners, or executive committee, you have to have all the stakeholders present. Too much information and too much risk to have the findings being presented just kind of relayed through telephone. It always kind of gets dumbed down a bit, and the impact just really isn't there. You will find some risk, and it needs to be. And it's uncomfortable to say, well, we're going to since only and as make it, we're going to reschedule. But key and otherwise, you're going to struggle to bring about any change at risk. First, whatever you do, I encourage everyone on this call performing a sentence. Whether you do it in-house, outsource it, but I highly encourage you to make sure. But why? First of all, file a claim. The first thing the provider is going to do, validate you have proper protection in place. Line with what you have in place on your policy application. If they don't, deny your claim. Negligence. Even they'll actually take open against you. There's actually an example now that a insurance carrier sued the policyholder for fraud because the company had said that they had place, but they actually did not. And then they filed a claim breach. However you do it, make sure that it gets done. Comfortable with what we talked about today, and you already have an in-house or outsourced IT provider, absolutely perform the assessment. Validate that, and make sure you do. Validate that your team's doing what they say they are. Like I said before, I mean, you want to have a third-party validate protections. At Heroic, we always have a third party. We have third party validates what we do because nobody's perfect. You need to make sure that eyes looking and everything is done properly. Don't have a IT team or a outsourced provider, or even want to double check their work. You can partner with an organization like Heroic Technology to perform the assessment on behalf. Having a third party validate the current. Like I said, we do it ourselves. Yep, we do have a third party validate all of our. We do it even more than annually. We do it every quarter. We have a third party that validates our internal protections, make sure that there wasn't some switch that accidentally turned off that needs to be time. That's how dedicated we are to security. Do choose to work with Heroic, choosing a group of cybersecurity and IT professionals that are dedicated to making sure secure and scalable. Our purpose, we've worked on for a while, is that at our core, we're really IT and cybersecurity company dedicated to empowering and protecting our clients and legal manufacturing professional services. We want to help them leverage technology to achieve efficient operation, robust cybersecurity, and scalable growth tailored to their. That being said, we're not a fit for everyone. Clients understand business and they value protecting their revenue operations. They value protecting their reputation. Take responsibility for business and the cybersecurity, investing in their own business. A partner, not just a provider. They don't want bare minimum. They understand, get what you pay for. They don't want the cheapest out there because they actually want to make sure their business is protected, what they've built is protected, the income for that business, livelihood for all the employees, and the services that they provide to their clients can remain important. And we're dedicated to protecting that. So if you would like to move forward and you're interested in some assistance, even just having a chat on it, getting a couple tips, even if you don't have heroic cybersecurity, I encourage you to go ahead and schedule a cyber strategy call. Strategy / and schedule a 20-minute call. We'll be happy to discuss where you're at, give you some tips, how you can move forward. Or if you'd like us to do it, we'd be happy to help. And also, if you signed up for the original webinar, had to be rescheduled. We're providing a 3 third-party level 1 penetration. Thank you. So this penetration test is actually performed whenever we do many scans and assessments, the larger risk assessment. And this is going to give an idea on technical vulnerability you might have in your environment. After having to reschedule, we actually reached out to the third party that we work to assess our own. And we were able to get them to provide free penetration for all the members that did register for last week's webinar. Whether you're able to attend today or not, we will be emailing you the opportunity to go ahead and take advantage of this penetration test. See what we could find in your environment to go ahead and take advantage of that. Use that additional information field. Please put pen test, and we'll go ahead and that'll be a trigger. So you qualify. We're going to go ahead. It's going to be really lightweight. You don't advise to go ahead. Really interesting information to and really appreciate it. It's quite an eye opener to see. Presentation, I really want to thank. Looks like we're able to finish a minutes or so back. And again, thank you so much.